What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Live Free podcast. I'm your host, Mike Maxwell. Today's guest is Miss Camille Rose Garcia. Today is Wednesday. The show will be up tomorrow, which will be Thursday. I wasn't sure that I was actually even going to put out an episode today. I had a couple people that I'm talking to about being on the show, but we just couldn't get our schedules sort of put together. And if you listen to me grumble at the beginning of the last episode, you'll know that those frustrations were following through into this week. But I'm letting that go. And so I was on Facebook this morning just seeing who was online, and I saw Camille had the little green dot. So I said, hey, what the hell? Let's ask. I had actually asked her once before, and we never were able to get together on anything. So we communicated this morning, and she is today's guest. So she's an OG. I would give her the OG status in the art community that I've come up in. I'm interested to see her perspective on the arc of her career and where she sits in art history. So and we've never met before. I don't know her personally, but I've known her work for over 10 years. I've been following it and seeing it and appreciating it. So let's give Camille a call.
Hello.
Camille Rose Garcia. How are you?
Hey. Good. How are you?
I'm so in love with three names.
Oh, do you have a middle name?
I do have a middle name, and my plan for my next show coming up in a couple months is to use it for the first time. So my full name is Michael James Maxwell.
Oh, that's a good one.
Right? It's a good 3-word name, but I'd never use it.
Well, I think if you use it, you should wear a top hat and have a cane.
Yeah, it all of a sudden gets like more official, right?
Yeah.
Was that any of your intention when have you always gone by your full name?
No, not really. I think it was it was just kind of at the point when I was starting to do more shows. I started going by my full name. It just sounded better.
Yeah, that's weird, right? Why does it? I don't
better
know.
On letterhead, It's just like more exotic a little bit. But that's my real name, so I thought I might as well use all of it.
If I ever have a daughter, I wanted to name her Rosa.
Oh, that's really pretty too. I like flower names.
Rosa Lynn. So also another 3-word name.
Yeah, so Rosa Lynn, she would have to play guitar in like a country band.
I know, right? That's the plan.
Yeah.
It's like just to raise
a little
perfect little country singer.
Yes, that is a good plan. I like it.
So first, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk with me. You and I have never met, but I've followed your work for a long time. I've been witnessing what you've been doing for over the last decade.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks.
Maybe we could just jump right back to the start. You're in Los Angeles now. Were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in Los Angeles and Orange County a little bit, Huntington Beach, behind the Orange Curtain. And then I came back here to go to art school at Otis Parsons. Uh-huh. And then I moved up north to go to grad school at UC Davis. And I actually just moved back to LA. This is my third time moving back here. I was up in the woods for about 7 years, Northern California, living like, a rural lifestyle.
Where are you up, like in the Sierras?
North, actually, kind of like almost to Oregon, the Redwood Coast right there. So a little bit inland from the ocean, but yeah, just like where all the big, humongous trees are.
And was that sort of initiated by an exodus from getting out of a city? Was there something that sort of to set you up to? Because I feel like I've even thought, like, it seems like a very artistic type thing to retreat to, like, the Walden's Pond or, you know what I mean? Like, to get back to nature on some level.
Absolutely. And everyone that I talk to, they're like, oh, I want to do that, So it is, the environment is gorgeous. It's really inspiring. Actually, I've been going up there since I was a kid. My grandparents homesteaded and built a cabin up in that area. So that was kind of like the third place that I lived as a kid. We would go there during summers. And, I always they sold a cabin at some point, but I always wanted to, kind of live back up there and experience it. And I guess it was about 2007. It was just like, I don't know how much longer I can live in LA. And my husband was like, yeah, I don't know how much longer I can either. And we went up there. My grandma just passed away, and we went up there for her funeral, and we found this 60s A-frame cabin right on the river. And we're just like, fuck it, let's just buy it. So it was kind of like a weird, like, yeah, why not? Let's see what happens. Which I think, I've lived my whole life in LA practically, and it was like, I can't grow as a person if I just live in the same environment this whole time. But LA, it's like a Death Star. It just keeps drawing me back, the magnetic pole,
I talk about that about San Diego a lot. And I think it's, sometimes it's like where you grew up, if there's something special about what you have something with it. There is like a weird, if I use that exact term, like magnetic, like something pulls me back here. And not only that, but if we romanticize the idea of seclusion so much.
Sure.
And as artists, you spend a lot of times secluded, but that can also get incredibly lonely.
Oh, yes, we have seen The Shining, and there are moments in the winter for sure that get like that. We do. I think we do romanticize as artists this, lifestyle, living in the woods, this pure nature, super inspiring. But what I realized living up there, what I missed about LA were really the people that I know, the creative people I know, because that doesn't exist everywhere. And I don't think I knew that fully until I left and then came back.
Yeah, that sense of community, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is, LA is somewhat incestuous, it seems like. Is that true?
Yeah, I pretty much know everyone that lives here now that's ever lived here. So I can't go anywhere without knowing someone. Just kind of nice.
What kind of led you into a creative path? What were your folks like? Did they sort of support you in?
Yeah, my parents actually met in art school in San Francisco.
Okay, so creative parents.
Yeah, my dad was a painter and my mom was a painter as well. And then my dad went into filmmaking. And they moved down here, and he went to UCLA for grad school for filmmaking. And my mom continued also to be a working artist. She did murals and sign painting, and I started to really apprentice with her at around like 14 or 15, and really work with her like on the job site. We're taking all her stuff and we're working.
Which is something that sort of leads into some of the work that you do. Like actually, now that you say that, like I can sense some of the fine brush work, you could relate a lot of the sign painting techniques.
Thank you.
To,
yeah.
The quality of line, the importance of the shape of line, points of things. You see that a lot from sign painters.
Yeah, and actually I learned a lot from her before I ever got to art school. And even from my dad being a filmmaker, I have a lot of that sort of narrative tendency in my work as well. So, and I'm kind of like, oh, I wish I could be a filmmaker, but that's more of a collaborative process. So I'd have to.
Do you ever? It's funny that you say that because I'm literally a third of the way done writing my first screenplay.
I heard on your podcast you were doing a film. You're making a film.
Yeah, I have a friend who's been a cinematographer for quite a long time now. Who's been doing it for about 10 years. And I've wanted to just work in some different type of medium, just to express myself in a different way.
Right, and film is it's such a natural progression from being a painter if you have any kind of narrative tendencies, and a music lover for me as well. It's like, oh, you get to use all of it. I mean, that's like the penultimate creative expression. It's just so kind of complicated, like it's easier in a way to be a painter in your studio because you just answer to yourself.
Right.
So it's just like you and then your negative voice babbling it out, but that's all you have to deal with. You don't have but I don't know, all the other stuff.
I talk about I actually just picked up some work recently, like some just regular work as a way to interact.
Regular work.
Yeah,
with
I know
people?
it sounds so with real people. Because of the idea of just having more interactions with people in a different sort of environment. And so as a painter, I've always had this like romanticized idea of having like an art band, that it could be like, here I we all work on this thing together and we pass it around and we all make it a thing. Even though again,
Yeah.
totally
No.
romanticized.
Oh my God, I always had a fantasy. That was like moving back to LA. I moved back, I think, December, and I was like, yeah, it's gonna be cool. I'm gonna hang out with like all my art friends. They're gonna come over to the studio. We're gonna like listen to music and then play guitar later and drink and draw. And it's like literally been just me alone in the studio
Yeah.
still. So it's like this, oh man, I'm still in the woods kind of.
And so that's why I think the idea of like getting involved in a film, you almost I like the idea of giving up some of the control. You know,
For sure.
it's
Yeah.
100% difficult for sure. But I like
Yeah.
the idea of trying.
Yeah, it's something to strive for sure. Yeah, I applaud you.
And you know, it also feels kind of like art directing more so. Like, even though I'm coming up with the narrative and the script and the story, and I see the whole thing in my head, just like I
Oh
would
yeah,
as a
yeah, it's
painter.
already done,
Yeah, it's
right?
all the way playing in my head. Like, I see every little light detail, the whole thing.
Oh
But
yeah.
now I get to just allow other people to make the work, and it kind of makes me like look at like Jeff Koons or like some of these like people who create these like art armies to build everything. It made
Yeah,
me look at it in a
that's
different way.
yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to. There's all means to an end. It's I don't really. I mean, I enjoy working with my hands. I enjoy making things, but
Right.
I don't think other people that don't make things like I don't see that as a problem or as any difference. I think ultimately, what comes out in the end as the artistic expression, that's really, that's what matters.
Yeah, and again, it's like also giving yourself an opportunity to work within a group, whereas
Right.
so much.
Yeah.
I
So
think,
it's kind of like a band.
yeah, a little bit,
You're
but
carrying equipment.
it's probably like the Beatles, like with having John and Paul being like dictators at the head, or any band where the lead
Oh
singer.
yeah. Yeah. See, that's the thing. I'd be the lead singer in the film. I would be, but I think that's why you'd be the director. Like you
Right?
would have to be the lead singer
Yeah,
as the artist.
the dictator, right?
For sure, absolutely. Yeah. There's no other way to get good art except by
So you had
that
all
way.
this early experience with having a creative upbringing right from the get go. Did
Right.
did it lead you into the idea of a career? Did that already, as seeing some your parents be able to do what they were doing and make a living? Did it seem to make sense to work as a like a career path? Whereas like a lot of kids, everybody makes shit when they're young, but
Mhm.
they rarely see it as like a type of a job, really, like a career path. So, did you see
Right.
that early on?
Yeah. Well, actually, when I was a kid, like you're saying, we all kind of made art when we were kids. And my main obsession from a very early age was I'm going to make animations. I'm going to be an animator. That was like, what I wanted to do. And that really never wavered um, up until high school. Then, it's like, oh, maybe I'll get into music or this or that. But it always seemed like a reality to be creative as a profession just because my mom did it full time. And she was a single mom. My parents split when I was really young, when I was one. And my dad was a filmmaker, but he taught filmmaking. Like there were all kinds of things around film that he was involved in. So it never seemed like something you couldn't do. And, as someone that has always loved art and animation and music, it's like, well, David Bowie was a kid once and he was like, I'm going to grow up and be a rock star. Like some people have to have those dreams because we can't all be Walmart greeters. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
someone has to be like the person that says, I'm going to be a creative person and it's going to be my job.
right,
But again, I mean, making it into a viable career choice involves so much more than just the making of the art, as you know.
right,
Um,
exactly.
yeah. So that's been the stuff I think I learned from my mom. Although it's not like she was the best at it, but it's like, yeah, you have to do bookkeeping. You have to like, sometimes you have to hire people to do things. And, there's all this like boring bullshit that you have to do. It's not just like I'm drinking red wine in the studio and, like
Yeah.
taking mushrooms. I mean,
So, how do you feel like you developed your style? So you talk about animation. Did you ever make any animations? Because uh, I feel like I've only seen your painting. I'm trying to think if maybe I've seen something in the past, but I feel like I haven't seen anything move before.
No, not yet,
Not
but
yet. Oh, there's a
something on
little
the
twinkle in your
horizon.
eye there.
Yeah, there's something on the horizon for sure. Finally, you know, my love's always been stop motion animation.
Uh-huh.
So that's a really laborative process. It takes a long time. So it's really been a matter of just trying to find the right people to work with. And is it possible to do that on an indie level without, you know, involving like tons of money in studios and all this stuff? So
Yeah.
for me, those are the challenges with that project. But I'm starting on something that's going to, I'll probably announce it later this year. But, you know, we'll probably finally see that come to fruition, hopefully.
Nice. And
I'm just going to say yes.
Nice.
We'll see it come to
Exclusive.
fruition. Yeah.
We're coming to a point where you know, the people who have been making things with their hands for 10 years are meeting up with the people who have been using modern technology for the last 10 years.
Right.
And these two things are sort of coming together sort of with a smooth transition in that, you know, we see a lot of young animators now who have gone through school. The modern technology has made it much more simple than
Oh,
before.
for sure.
You know, like
Oh, yeah.
it puts a lot of less stress on the artists in terms of like the amount of drawings that they have to do. You know,
Yeah.
all the coloring, everything is so, you know, and it's one. You know, there's a lot of purists, and I'm sure like maybe your father, you know, a lot like old school film guys are probably not. A lot of them are not happy about the digital transformation of movies. I just heard Quentin Tarantino call it TV in public.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
He was
In public.
saying that because they're no longer using film, that it's just digital projection, mostly digital recording,
Oh,
and
okay.
then in the
Right.
movie theaters, it's digital projection. So he's just calling it like a bunch of people watching television in public. That it's no longer like a film.
Oh,
It
okay.
doesn't have
Yeah.
the prestige or
Yeah, see,
whatever.
I don't think that diminishes the quality of his movies or anyone else's movies, you
No,
know.
totally.
I
But
mean,
in terms of using that idea with animation, like, do you have like an old school flair? Like, do you want to keep connected to that old school like stop animation style? Are you willing to utilize all the modern technology and just like no
absolutely.
rules?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I always have been very I embrace technology. I embrace my Macintosh, my iPad, my you know all of it. I use all of it. I use Photoshop probably every day. I mean, I use Dreamweaver. I use all of the things that can be used. So I don't see any point in making things harder. You know, like
Right?
yeah, than they already are. You know, yeah, it's a laborious process, even if you use digital effects making a film. So I think, like I said, in the end, if you can use something to help get your story across and it'll make it easier and cheaper and able to get it out there, then why not? You
Right.
know, I mean, isn't it better than having, you know, like 1,000 slaves in Taiwan paint in the animated cells? You know, like how is that better? I don't
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah. Exactly.
better.
What people
So,
don't see. So
right.
I sort of put you. I mentioned this in the intro that I did. That I kind of have you in this like OG status of like the sort of modern LA pop surrealist movement. And as soon
Oh,
as I
thanks.
say that,
Nice. Oh, gee. All
like
right.
that's the best part of that. Having
I've
all
earned
those
it.
other titles is like, but the OG part is important.
I
But
like I like it.
so I have you sort of in this class of like the beginning of what feels like this new art movement that has happened with, I guess, the people who have grown up in the last 25 years. And I'm curious about how you look at the arc of this thing, since being in this sort of field for like over a decade. How long have you been painting professionally, like doing gallery shows and stuff? A
Well,
long time,
probably
huh?
well, yeah, like 1999 was like the first year where you know, like oh, stuff's starting to happen. Like I remember my first show that sold out that year. And that same day I was $20 overdrawn at the bank. I was trying to like buy an outfit, you know, for the show. And I was like, damn, I'm $20 overdrawn. And then that night everything sold and was just like, thank you, universe, something kind of switched. But that was 1999, so I guess yeah, it's been yeah, like over I don't know, 15 years or so. But yeah, at the time it was like okay, Mark Ryden was around, the Clayton brothers were around, Tim Biscup, all these artists were in LA that were kind of starting to do this thing outside of um, the, elite gallery system that used to really be the only art scene. But what changed really in that time period, and I know people born in like the 80s won't even understand this, but there was a time before the internet. And when I started art school, it didn't exist. And by the time I got out of grad school, it existed. So that was the big thing. It was like, okay, suddenly, just like music, people can experience and enjoy art in a diplomatic way and find out about it instantly and not have to like go to the library and look in old books and like everyone's dead who you like. You know what I mean? It became, to me, it became more like how we experience bands,
Yeah.
like this, you go and see their show and they're like, they might be your age or younger, so it's this sort of more immediate sense of community than how we, used to experience art with like I'm saying,
So now we see the swing though, right? Like, so from that group of people who you mentioned, sort of veering off of the main gallery system, coming full swing, we see all you guys now moving on from, working the gallery systems in LA and New York and like working your way up. Like there's this like sort of echelon to where now you start working in these, what is it, blue chip? What color chip is it supposed to be? And then museums and
it's gold chip actually.
Gold chip, yeah.
Probably a gold chip. But yeah, blue chip galleries and Art Basel, yeah, the higher art world, I guess.
So do you look back at this sort of structure and have any sort of amazement? Is it weird to look back now over this span? Like do you feel like you have to keep improving, like keep moving up? Like is there ever like a sort of letting up of the pressures to
No, not at all. Because I think that, the thing that nobody talks about is, you try your whole life to achieve something meaningful or important or, that you can make a career out of that you love, whatever the thing. And then once you achieve it, then how do you stay there? That's the other question is like,
right.
How do you stay? How do you keep people interested? How do you keep yourself interested? How do you not say, oh, well, fuck, I painted every painting I could possibly ever think of? How do you keep your mind expanding and creative and going places it hasn't gone before and also having that be a business? That becomes kind of the challenge. And I felt very blessed and lucky to be able to do it for, this many years and still do. Like just this year last year it was kind of a hard year. It was like one of the harder years in a long time. It's like about and pay me and, that kind of thing. It was like, shit, man, I hope I can keep doing this. Like it's, how am I going to keep doing this? And then to just somehow then the next year is like, okay, no, things are happening. Like, okay, I can keep doing this. But every year is always that weird fear. And I think like my mom grew up really poor and we grew up, with a single mom, so not a lot of money. So there's always that weird fear of like, pushing the shopping cart down the street. You know what I mean? Like if I don't work like every single day and make interesting, beautiful work that's meaningful, like I'm going to be destitute, but I get really extreme about it. I guess it keeps me.
How do you keep that motivation? How do you keep that like love alive?
Fear, just pure fear.
Just living on the edge of fear.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think, for me, it's important to, I find inspiration everywhere, music, books, film, whatever. But to try not to get, too jaded or dejected or live in a place of cynicism. I have to really kind of come at it all the time with sort of pure like child eyes in a way.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess that's, that's the way I do it. I don't know how other people, what their method is.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear because, like I find myself at a period of like working for about a decade. not having accomplished anything that the ideas of what I thought I could accomplish in 10
Oh
years.
yeah, no, it's never what you thought.
No, it never can be.
Yeah,
There's
that's why
so many
I
variables.
barely plan out paintings. Like I'll be like, why bother? It's just gonna all change in the end anyway. Like I'll write down themes, and sometimes I'll do a quick sketch. But it's like there's no point once I'm in there. It's like the painting reveals itself. I don't totally know, and that's the other thing we were talking about. Like, how do you find inspiration? I mean, I think you have to be able to get your mind to a place that's relaxed and not distracted, and to be able to trust your mind as well, like get that other voice out that is so that will just pick you apart constantly.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of trust it when you're in there. It's like, okay, I have to trust this thing and just go with it. So I have a good relationship with my inner critic now, where I don't really let it around while I'm working.
It's funny you say that, because the most recent set of paintings that I've been doing, I've simply just been painting wood grain, which is actually a technique that you use a lot of wood in your work. I know
do.
there's wood grain.
Yeah.
So I've just been doing like psychedelic fill in the color patterns of the wood
Oh,
grain.
cool.
Because I was thinking, I was talking about abstraction, like working in abstraction, and how even when I do so, I'm still a little bit in control of what I know how the image will probably come out. Like if I use a color palette, like I know. So I was like, what can I do where I have the least amount of control over what the image is going to be like? And
Right.
And I just put gesso on a panel, a black gesso on the panel, and all of a sudden the wood grain just shined. It had a different sheen than the non-grain part.
Right.
Just color that in. And so it was one of those things, like just a moment of letting my mind just relax and not give a fuck for a minute.
Yeah, you couldn't have pre-thought that out or sketched it out beforehand. It's a moment of discovery while you're working. Yeah. That's why as an artist or any creative person, if you have the time, it's important to work on it every day. Even if you go to your studio, your table, whatever, and you think, oh, I don't have any ideas today.
Yeah.
To me, all the ideas come out while I'm working, not like beforehand,
Yeah,
it's in the process of working.
That's something I found very interesting about writing a film. Is all of a sudden you have an idea of the scope of it, the plot, and the problems and all the things along the way. But as you're writing it, new little, like, all of a sudden, like, a new character pops up who has something very specific to say that you would have never thought of.
Oh, I know.
Never.
That's I think the genius. I mean, that's why I'm so always enamored of the creative process, because it's like the minute you show up with an open mind and you're like, all right, brain, we're gonna have some fun here. We're gonna we're gonna be here for at least 4 hours. We're gonna have some fun, and then it's like, oh, cool. Okay, we're playing. We're not like worrying about bills or fucking checking our shit, and we're gonna have some fun. All right, and then the brain will kick in and it will start to play. That's how I experience it. It gets very playful.
Playing is really, and
or tortured. That's the other thing that works. Tortured. So
sheer torture.
It'll go from one to the other, right? Torture to play in a second.
Can we talk about the creative worlds that you formulate in your works? I wouldn't even really know how would you describe something that you like. You create environments of mythical figures, typically in some sort of soiree.
Yeah, that's soiree. I like soiree. That's good.
I feel like there's oftentimes people moving in circles.
There's a lot of
by people I mean characters of some sort.
Yes, creatures and sometimes people. The best way I can describe it is I feel like I create narrative landscapes, but it's more of like a subconscious landscape, like a dream where things are floating in and out of focus, and you can't exactly piece together something that makes sense. But on a deep symbolic level, everything kind of makes sense. Yeah, so that's what I try to do, I guess. I don't know if I'm succeeding, but that's that's
this is always like a horrible way to go about a question. But like maybe we could be more like artistically specific in terms of like how you go through a process, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I usually start with writing. I write down the ideas. Like I'm working on a show right now that opens in Seattle on April 3rd.
Oh, nice.
And it's called The Dance Macabre, which is, that's kind of like a certain historical paintings people used to do where people would be depicted dancing with the dead. So they'd be dancing, around graves or, whatever, but dancing with death. And the idea behind it was, that death could come for you at any time. So you have to kind of celebrate and live life to the fullest while you're in it. It was
Yeah,
kind of
my dancing in circles thing really makes sense now that you said that.
Yeah. So the paintings I'm working on now, actually, there are soirees and
See?
tangos and dancing, and they really are more. I mean, I guess they're. I was looking, I was like, are these like gloomy or are these beautiful? I couldn't kind of figure it out, but
Sometimes
so
that's
they're
fun.
skeleton. Yeah, yeah. The colors are really bright, and there's like orchids and plants. There's a lot more plants since I moved up to the woods, like that are coming into the paintings. So it's kind of like springtime, but then there are these like skeletons and teeth and floating ghost heads. And these paintings are actually really romantic. Also, I used to do work more about like critical commentary and Orwellian and like our society is so fucked up, and
Yeah,
and it is,
sure.
and it will be. But it was also like I had this epiphany last summer, and it was from seeing a couple bands live where it just reminded me of just like, oh my God, no, like if the world is ending, like you have to experience all the beauty, all the love, all the sound, all the color, all the flavors, like everything. It's our duty to live like that.
Yeah. Have
So
you seen
that
Melancholia?
no, I haven't.
You
I
should watch
haven't.
that film.
Yeah, that's like the asteroids coming or something.
Yeah, well, it's a planet called Melancholia that's about to that is going to hit Earth. But
Oh, okay.
but that's only like one very small portion of the film. It's really good, and it fits
Yeah.
like all these same types of thematic ideas.
Yeah, yeah. It seems like in the, again, it's kind of cliche, but we're living in some dark days here on Earth, I believe. Maybe we're in a sixth great extinction. I mean, certainly that has been said. There certainly are unsustainable ways that we live that who knows how much longer that can go on.
Yeah. So do you
But
feel like you're at a point where you're like, okay, I understand these things. I could do the best that I can, and I'm gonna go ahead and. Do you feel like you're kind of setting some of that stuff aside a little bit?
yeah, I think I am. I think exactly how you said it. Because at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, okay, I moved up to the woods. I learned to make pickles. I learned to bake sourdough bread. Like, I can grow shit. My husband can chop wood. We can
Yeah.
build fire. Like, we can do all this shit, okay? But at the end of the day, you have to also experience the beauty in life and in all forms, like how I just said, or else you're just living in fear. You're just living a half life. And I've certainly, you see people living in states of pure fear. And it could just be in this sort of like everyday fear, like, oh, I'm afraid to leave my job, even though I hate what I'm doing, like 50 hours a week, or, there's all different levels of it. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
I
It's like,
find
are you slowly living or are you just slowly dying?
I find the creative type person is always what they fear is not living enough.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I think about that all the time,
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I'm talking about all of these things, but literally I'm a fucking hermit in the studio for like 90% of my life. So it's like, what? I want to see fans. I want to go get an ice cream cone, but it's like shit is due.
Yeah,
So
painting takes a really fucking long time.
it does. That's what a lot of these young chickens in school don't know. They're like, how'd you get to be famous? How do you have 200 likes on your Facebook? And I'm just like, I don't have any idea, but I know I'm in the studio like 90% of the time,
Yeah, how many
not
hours?
going to Coachella.
I'm sure you probably put in some serious hours.
Yeah, it's like, well,
Do you ever
here's
see
a,
paintings that you forget about?
oh yeah, no, there's one hanging here in the studio that it was in storage and my husband pulled it out and I was like, when the fuck did I make that? Like I literally couldn't even remember when I made it, or yeah, I don't even know.
It's
Yeah,
a
I've
great
made.
feeling, right?
Yeah, it's because you realize you are just like it's kind of capturing a moment in time,
Uh-huh.
and you were like doing this, but you were in it, you're in the zone, and then it goes by. And I mean, that's the thing. Like one day I'll just be, dust in the ground, but these
Yeah.
paintings hopefully will still be around and capturing those moments,
Yeah.
of my
And
life.
it's also nice to look back because, like, even having this conversation, I'm sure it's like you could think back at stuff that maybe like something that had just sort of slipped your mind or whatever, and it's weird how there's like these moments, like a lot of times for most people it's like music or something like what can put them back. Like I'm trying to
Like,
like with the film that I'm doing, I'm trying to like remember moments like that, like first kisses or like the color of a room in a
oh,
particular
dude,
moment.
yeah, that's my paintings that I've been doing this year and last year when I had the epiphany. They're pretty much about that, like trying to capture this perfect moment in time. So there's all these sort of ghost hands reaching out and like women kind of conjuring things from their pipes, but like capturing that moment that it's almost so melancholy, like when you're experiencing it, knowing that like, oh my God, this moment is going by. But like you're saying, your first kiss or like a band you love and you see them before they get big and in like some small club or just any of those like really poignant moments. It's and you can it's already like it's in your past. And are you going to have that again? Are you going to
Yeah.
experience that?
I
You
think
know?
that's a big part of wanting to do film too, is recreate that stuff.
Oh, I like it. Yeah, yeah,
Just
yeah,
because you can. Like
yeah, yeah. You can build a world.
even though I could build something in my head, it necessarily
Hmm.
doesn't come out in my painting hand. Like I could definitely make something symbolic or metaphorical,
Yeah,
but you can't always make what's in your head. It feels like it almost feels cheater
yeah.
because I'm a painter.
Yeah, well, no, I think film is really the closest because you have the experience of the music and moving, and I mean you have all these other elements that, you know, yeah, pre-film you had to work with paint, but now we have the option of working with film, so
Yeah.
it does encompass a lot more of the senses for sure.
I feel like there's some advantage to like having a painter's mind. Yeah, even though that sounds so fucking egotistical to say. Never, I don't even
No,
want to
no, no.
continue.
I think it's the same process. I really do. I mean, the process is you're communicating something to other people. I mean, that's essentially what you're doing as a painter or as a filmmaker
Trying
or as a
to, anyway.
writer. Yeah, you're trying to communicate and something important, hopefully.
Yeah. Well,
Or you're making The Hangover. Maybe you're making The Hangover. Maybe that's your film.
yeah, I don't know. Do you so with the figurative work that you're doing in the narrative? So you're coming up with your writing. Are you writing things out long form? Do you like? I take the weirdest notes ever.
Oh yeah, no, mine are the weirdest, most cryptic notes
Okay,
ever.
perfect.
So
Yeah.
it'll be like a list. Like I'll start writing like, oh, Trader Joe's, like, go to the bank, and then it's like, oh, captured moments in bottles, like, just like random, and that's how it is. It'll be like a list of random ideas like that. But then, and then I'll think about what kind of symbols I want to use to communicate. Because I work in the realm of faces and eyeballs and things that we recognize.
Yeah.
That's my language. So yeah, for the pieces that were about capturing these poignant moments. So the setting is like, okay, well, they have to be in a cave or underwater because that symbolizes the unconscious. And then, there's these women with these pipes, and that's desire, and they're kind of conjuring these ghosts, which is memory.
Uh-huh.
Um, and there's all this sort of like lush growth, mushrooms and plants growing in the cave, and that symbolizes I guess sort of the fertility of youth or your mind, or the sort of like active layered life,
Uh-huh.
really.
Sure. Yeah,
So
like the
that's kind of how they come together. I'll write down the symbols and what I want to kind of communicate, and then I'll figure out how to communicate it. But beyond that, of like, okay, I'm going to use like moths and hands and ghosts and pipes, I'll write those things down and maybe come up with some colors that will reflect that. And then after that, it's really an exploration on the
and
in the
that's mostly
painting.
for you, right? Like that whole thing, like all of those ideas, even though
Hmm.
you want to express them to other people,
Yeah,
from my personal experience, the
yeah.
viewers tend to miss a lot of that stuff?
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know if anyone will ever know what the hell any of my work is about, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. Which is not important or not important.
Yeah, you can't really control what other people think or how they're going to really view something. But
Yeah.
I do think there are things you can communicate that are universal. And so that's the language of symbols and of color. I mean, red means a particular thing, blue means a particular thing. So, my language are all of those elements, and I'm able to, I can, I don't want to say manipulate, but I can, by using certain colors and symbols, I can communicate as best I can
And
without too like obvious, really.
I feel like your use of body language tells a lot of the story. I feel like there's a lot of times where things are much darker, like certain parts of your work are much darker, and it could
It's not
be
dark.
it could be the
That's
same
strange.
like color pattern. It could be the
Yeah,
same sort of creatures and figurative, but there's
yeah.
within certain body language, there's like a sinisterness that comes out. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, yeah, I
Sinister?
guess that's very fair. I think it's totally subconscious, though. I mean, yeah, like these new paintings I was working on, it was like, oh, they're going to be like cheerful spring paintings. And then it's like, I don't, maybe they're much darker than I actually think. But, you know, yes, that's accurate. And I think a lot of times the sinister elements represented, I guess, like the natural world versus the man-made world and our relationship with nature. So always the sinister element was our sort of raping and pillaging of the earth and ruining it for whatever means, capitalism, corporations, whatever, all of that.
Yeah, all
But
that good stuff.
all of that stuff. So that would be like there would be some, that would be the villain. But now in these newer paintings where it's like, okay, that isn't the villain anymore. But now the villain is death. That is the sinister undertone is, you want to live life to the fullest and experience everything because, you don't know when death will come to have a dance with you.
That might be a good spot to end this thing on. I like that.
Oh, well, shoot, I'm having a lot of fun.
I mean,
But I guess you can end.
yeah, we got 40 minutes. It's almost an hour.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
Okay.
they go by fast. It's surprising. Like, it's really strange that as soon as you get, like, the first 5 minutes are always like, but I feel like we had a good conversation. Yeah. You
Yeah,
feel
that
good
was,
about it?
yeah, it would be fun to do this every week and I could get out of my.
You're more than welcome to come on whenever you'd like.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Can we send people over to your website? You said you have a show coming up in Seattle next month.
Yeah, yeah, it's April 3rd in Seattle at Rock LaRue Gallery.
Nice.
And so it's in a few weeks.
And what kind of are you showing? Big paintings, little paintings, sculpture.
I'm
I
mainly.
see some cutouts in the background.
Oh, that was for a parade I did at Outside Lands,
Oh,
which
rad.
is like, yeah, because I was like, oh, I'm tired of painting. I want things to move. So I was like, I'll make a parade, which was like, it was super fun. But I was like, no, Camille, if you're going to do a parade, you need a band with it. Like, so we hooked onto this like samba band and danced with them, but they danced for like 2 hours straight, and I almost had a heart attack. We had to cut out, but that's what those were for. So yeah, it'll be like, I don't know, like average size paintings. But all the subject I was talking about with the dance with death, and the skeletons and, orchids and, flowers.
Beautiful.
All that
Well,
stuff.
Camille, I want to thank you again for taking the time to shoot the shit with us. It was a pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Good luck on your film.
Yeah, thank you very much, and best of luck with the show. Let's do internet dap. Give
What
me
are we
some
doing?
Knuckles. Give me some knuckles. On the
Oh,
screen.
fist bump?
Yeah.
Sweet.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks for visiting.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Oh no, dear.